Okay, before we continue on, another little plug for my novel, 2084, The Reawakening. The original 1984 by George Orwell does not end well because an individual fighting against the system loses horribly, loses any sense of his own individuality. I don't like that ending. So I wrote 2084, The Reawakening, in which an individual goes up against the system and wins, or at least does a whole lot better. He finds other people who think like him, and the ending, if it's not an entirely happy ending, it's a promising ending. So perhaps we can settle for that for now. So let's continue on with uh, this conversation with real people. Juliana, episode 2. We start out having a pleasant conversation about brothers and sisters and why, if we all come from the same family, why are we all so different and yet in a lot of ways very much alike? So it's kind of interesting. But then we bring up immigration since her father is an immigrant from Mexico. And unfortunately, or fortunately, perhaps, we start talking about the cartels in Mexico and what that amounts to. And it is not a pleasant conversation, but it's very revealing. So it's something you may not want to watch, but I guarantee you need to watch.
I think that everyone is in their situation for a different and very unique reason. And maybe, yeah, they're just a bump on a log who really isn't doing much, but maybe there's a reason why. And maybe it goes deeper than just, oh, they have no motivation. Maybe they
Well,
were,
maybe they have no motivation.
yeah, maybe they were just taught never to have motivation.
Okay. Oh, stop right there. Because I know a bit about how you were taught. You certainly were taught some motivation.
Yeah.
Is motivation something we can expect any individual to develop on their own, or is motivation taught?
I believe motivation is, I was just thinking that, yeah. She's thinking that, I was thinking that motivation is not innate. I strongly believe that. I have a younger brother, he's 13. We could not be more different.
Supposed to be
I,
the case, but go on.
yeah. And I don't think it's, oh, he's just a guy, oh, he's just this. I think, and it's something that I've been grappling with a lot. Was he just born that way? And it just doesn't make sense to me. But I think that at the end of the day, there were some things that I lived that he didn't. And that's why I am the person I am, and that's why he's the person he is. Obviously, yeah, there's science. The human brain is different in male to female, the way it's connected, the synapses. But there were some things he simply did not get to experience because he was child number 2. My parents were dealing with 2 kids at the time. There was a lot juggling. I was a gymnast, a basketball player. Like I was doing all these things, and all of a sudden you have a baby it was a lot. And I don't blame them. I just think that there are things that need to be taught, and he just didn't latch on to like I did because he needed it spelled out maybe a little bit more.
I've got a brother and 2 sisters, and couldn't find more different people in a lot of ways. In some ways, I mean, we're like this
Mhm.
as a family, as siblings, but we can argue and fight. We've gone our different ways. Um, and I spend time thinking about it, and I don't know. So, yeah, I don't know if even psychologists can give you a perfect answer to that. They do say, and I believe it's to some extent, your order in the family makes a difference. You're the
Yes.
oldest, you're older. Honestly, you sound like an older. I get that. Not remind me of my older sister, but I see that connection. So it would make sense.
Yeah. I think there's a lot more that goes into it other than just, oh, you're a guy, you're a girl, you're the oldest, you're the youngest. This is what you did, this is what you didn't do. I think it's a culmination of things,
For sure.
but I think that there's simply at the end of the day, my dad didn't teach him how to count past 100.
Mhm.
Um, and I see that.
He'd already done that once and he was done with it, or what? With your brother?
I couldn't tell you honestly. I think
Okay.
maybe at that point he was just tired. And he saw, oh, well, she's so great. If I maybe give 50 to 60, maybe even 75%, he will measure up, he will compare. And I think that in addition to that idea of, oh, she's good, I can maybe pull back a little bit, there was also the idea that I was a girl and my brother was a boy. And for my dad, I think subconsciously that played a very large part in how he taught the two of us and how he raised us. And I see that now, now that we're older, we're not adults yet, but he's grown into who he is.
He being your brother,
Yes,
who is 13?
13. And that my dad told him different things because he was a boy and pulled back a little bit because he was kid number 2. And that I was a girl and I was kid number 1. I think that is what it is. And that motivation just isn't there for my brother because of what was not.
Okay. Yeah, I'll leave that there because I don't know why people turn out so different, but they do.
Yeah.
And which goes to saying you shouldn't be treating people like we're all the same because we aren't far from it. So, yeah, I did want to get back to your father with the green card. He's immigrated from
Mexico.
Mexico.
Yeah.
About how long ago?
20 years ago.
Yeah.
A little more than 20, my bad. I was going to say 25 years. Sorry, my context.
Kind of turn of the
Yeah.
year 2000. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, give or take. Any stories about that he tells or that you know, or the feelings that you have? Because obviously immigration is just a bit of an issue these days. How do you see it or what?
I immediately what comes to mind is, and I don't mean this in a bad way, he has just been here for so long, his identity has completely changed. And that even 5 years ago, I feel like he's a completely different person. And I don't.
Maybe you're older and you're seeing him differently.
Maybe that is something to think about, but that his views are so different than when he probably first came here because he's just on the other side of it now. And he simply cannot fathom living his life before immigrating. And for him,
how old was he when he immigrated?
19, 20?
Oh, okay, so
I don't know, maybe a little bit older, 25 even.
Technically an adult, but not so much of an adult.
Oh, he was 16.
Oh, okay, you're
17, age. My bad. Yeah, he was really young.
Okay, your age, that's interesting. Yeah. So,
yeah.
Because in a sense, I got to say this because it flashes in my head. I immigrated at approximately the same age, only I immigrated from Massachusetts.
Yeah.
But it's a little bit alike, not legally, but a little bit alike because it's a different culture. I was seeing different things there than I saw here. And yet at the same time, I was changing. I'm a kid, basically, if you don't mind me saying 16 as a kid. So I was continually seeing things in new ways anyway, just because I was me and a young person, but also coming from a different place. Yeah, that throws you around a bit. And yeah, I don't think I'm the same person now that I was. Yeah.
Well, I do think that a large part of it was him growing up. But I think another thing is, and I think this was like a joke on SNL, like, oh yeah, it's the new actor. Forgive me, I forget his name. That he was joking around about his dad. Like, my dad's been here so long that he considers himself like white Republican male. And obviously, like, that's not what my dad thinks, but it made me think about it for a minute. Like, wow, he's been here for so long. It's hard for him to, like, maybe not picture, but accept the fact that not everyone gets to a point like he did. He owns his own company, as I mentioned. He came here when he was 16. He moved out when he was 12. Now I remember. I mix up some. He moved out of his house when he was 12.
To where?
To his own house. He moved to Tijuana. So he was from very southern Mexico, very much on the border of Guatemala. He moved to Tijuana when he was 12, came here when he was 16. And his life has just completely changed.
Mhm.
But
Before you go any farther with that, I got to get how he got from Tijuana into the United States at the age of 12?
he was 16 when
16 at
Yeah.
that point. How do you do that?
he really hasn't shared that much about his immigration process. He was given a work visa, I believe. His mom was here and petitioned for him.
Okay.
He doesn't talk about it much because I think he is, I wouldn't say ashamed, but he doesn't like to think that there was a time where he wasn't as great as he is now. If that makes sense in a weird way. He takes lots of pride in how far he's come, but I think it's hard for him to look back.
Hmm. Yeah, it kind of stops me for a moment because, yeah, I think if you've succeeded, if you got from here to there,
Yeah.
why not look back and say, look, I did this. But okay. Um, because I've had that thought all along with what you said is that he's a success. He's the American success story.
Yes. He used to jokingly tell me, I live the American dream. And I don't know if it's the dream that I want to live. And that gets really weird, but I wrote an essay my eighth grade year, like about immigration and about the American dream. And when you get here, it is not a dream. It's
Not a dream, how?
it's you are a nobody. Sometimes, most of the time, you don't know the language.
Mm-hmm.
You came here with the clothes on your back. You're working basically as a modern day slave, being exploited by large companies.
I just disagree with you a little bit there. Slave is when somebody owns you. You got It's okay. To the extent that you have to work at a very low level because that's all anybody will hire you to do, that still doesn't make you a slave. It makes you in a rough way that you might want to advance beyond, which your father did. But you're not a slave.
No, I see what you mean. This last summer, I was a part of multiple college programs, and we went on multiple field trips. We went to what's it called? In Cincinnati, the museum about slavery. It's like the Freedom Center.
Freedom Center.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that there was a portion of the museum that was dedicated to what is modern day slavery.
Mm-hmm.
It's not person owning a person, though sometimes it is with human trafficking.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I don't disagree.
But it has changed. And there is still exploitation of other human beings. Though it may not be ownership, it is still denying someone of their dignity.
Right. Now, let me hold that thought because I want to go with that. But yeah, I think fill in some of the history. What's unique, kind of unique, I think, about American history and the South and the plantation slavery is there really were pieces of paper. You are so and so slave.
Mm-hmm.
It hasn't always been like that. It was more of a tradition, has been and is, and so forth. But the legalizing of it, to the extent that it was all you had they had slave auctions all over the place. What am I trying to say? But instead of being like behind the scenes or below people's notice, the slavery is right there in your face, in the South, in America, in the early times. But I agree that whether you make it all official and put it in a package, say this is slavery and here's the laws, or whether it's behind the scenes and nobody's looking at it, it's slavery either way.
Yeah.
I'll buy that. And one more thing, I'll let you talk, because a lot of the plantation slaves saw it the same way. That this is the way it is. It wasn't so much here's the piece of paper. It's that I am a slave. I'm supposed to be a slave.
Yeah.
I expect to be a slave. There's your problem. When when your Frederick Douglasses and so forth say, no, I'm not having this, that's when you really can be free. I say of Frederick Douglass, he was not freed. He freed himself. That's the only way ultimately you can do it.
Yeah, we're actually currently learning. I'm in APUSH. APUSH, AP US History.
Okay.
So,
okay.
yeah. And we're talking about Well, I'm testing on Tuesday. But we're currently on basically 1800 to 1848. So the Jacksonian period, that kind of initial like bubbling before the Civil War, Frederick Douglass, Nat Turner, um, all sorts of people like that. But that a lot of it was fear. It wasn't, oh, I am. It was, you are. This is all you know. Um, it wasn't like, oh, yeah, you could just be freed. I think I agree. Like, yeah, you free yourself. But a large part of it was, can you make that leap and survive?
Oh, I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And fear held these people to be slaves, to be property, which is disgusting and beneath what humanity is made for.
And yet, in a sense, it goes on a certain amount still today. Because you don't have to put it in writing, you're a slave.
Mm-hmm.
You can be a slave and it's not in writing,
Yeah.
there. It's just the way it is. Yeah.
So I think that fear still holds strong in today's society, that there are people who flee illegally and are here and remain here illegally and hide out of fear.
Fear of where they're from, you mean?
Fear of getting caught by ICE, fear of being
Right.
deported,
Well,
and fear of
why are they here? What were they fleeing something there, wherever there is, or what?
and that is one thing that I feel very strongly about, that there are some people who are asylum seekers who should not be, because there are people here who fled on the grounds of asylum that are here for economic benefit.
Mhm.
And people are exploiting the availability of asylum seeking. And that there are people in Venezuela for sure who deserve it the most, probably at this time. I wouldn't even say the most, but
What?
asylum.
Oh, okay.
Um, but that there are people here for economic reasons, or maybe aren't necessarily escaping a battlefield or the cartels, but they're here for a better life, and they did it illegally, and they fear their life across the border, but they also fear waiting and what they would miss out on not coming here if they came here illegally, like the time that would be spent and the money that could potentially be wasted just to be denied. And that fear really holds them captive. Now is now. I don't have any more time.
Yeah, I mean, to me, an uncertain future is just a rough way to live your life. Um, and yet, apparently, that uncertain future here is better than a certain future somewhere else, I
Yeah.
guess.
And that was kind of, I was alluding to it earlier, that sometimes the future here isn't much better than it is there. And it takes a lot for it to be worth it, to be a dream.
Mm.
Yeah, I think that a lot of it is people expect it to be good as soon as they get here, but it's not. And I think a lot of them know that, like, it's not going to be puppies and rainbows, but there's a small part of them that truly hopes that something magical will happen. So,
Yeah, that from my perspective, the only thing I would say, and I'm not dead set on the law, like everything's about the law. I think most of what a person experiences now, they live their life, has little to do with the law. So I don't push it too hard as far as illegal is illegal. Now, I'm not saying, okay, come on in, legal or not. I don't care. Yeah, I care. Um, but yeah, again, as the individualist, it is okay. Why does this person come in illegally and this person comes in illegally and not end up with the same life? Because somebody might do quite well and somebody might not. Because it still comes down to not just what is the situation, but what am I doing about that situation?
yes. It takes a lot of willpower
Oh, sure.
to make that switch. And I don't think that everyone's capable of it. And I don't mean that in a mean way. I just mean that some people are simply just stronger willed than others. And some people are aren't like, I don't even know what the word would be, but like, I don't want to say too emotional or too fragile because that's not true.
Well,
It's
it can be,
just,
but not always.
yeah,
Yeah.
but that there are just some people who struggle a little bit more for whatever reason, whether that be the way they were treated as a child, what they were and were not taught. It truly does take a lot of willpower once you get here, especially legally. What do you do with your life? And do you just live in the shadows or do you do something about it?
Yeah, just for what it's worth, my father's mother, my grandmother on my father's side, immigrated from Germany like 1890, something like that.
Mhm.
Um, we're not real sure how legal she was, and of course, laws were very different, and
Much different, yeah.
not just the law. Again, you say the law. Well, what does that really mean? But it was hard, much more difficult to even track anybody to know who's who or what's what, and people even cared less. I don't think when you hired somebody, you didn't have to ID them as a citizen or not. There was no such paperwork to be done. So it was a different kind of thing anyway. But she came here, and my father told the story that her parents, she was 19, her parents told her, no, you're not going to America. And so she saved money on the slide, booked her ticket on the boat, no planes at that point, and snuck out of the house, said goodbye to her sister, who knew what was going to happen. Said goodbye to her sister at the age of 19, against her parents' wishes. She went to America. So I think that kind of initiative counts for something anyway. And she was successful, not a big time success, but she did okay.
Yeah. I I think because I have a lot of family that's immigrated. Sorry, my contacts are getting kind of dry, but I have a lot of family on my dad's side that's come here, and they all lead very, very different lives. Obviously, my dad probably being the most successful, um, and I guess if you would say so monetarily wise, financially, yeah, I mean, I go to private school, he pays for it, like, our life is good,
Mhm.
but I think that there was a lot of sacrifice along the way,
Easily.
yeah, and to get to that point wasn't pretty.
Sure.
And then he has brothers who maybe aren't as successful, but they didn't sacrifice maybe as much, and they maybe are happier in their own way.
Sure.
Um, I don't know what she's saying, but
Yeah, and I'll just add to that. Yeah, that running a business is tough. If running a business was easy, everybody would do it.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
A lot of people would rather be the employee. Um, so there's pluses and minuses either way. Um, if you make everything about the money, then I guess being a successful businessman is the best you can hope for. But you pay a different kind of a price to do that. So
Yeah. Yeah. And not to mention, he does still work a second job.
mhm.
So he's food and beverage director at the Hilton.
Okay.
And then he does a car business. So he says it's for fun. Like this is fun for him. Maybe in my mind, not so much. Although my version of fun is like studying. So maybe I have
Well,
no right to
yeah,
comment.
well, yeah, some of both. I can see that. I'm retired and I'm not rich and I'm not poor. I don't have to work. I'm taking jobs. It helps make a little money, but I also enjoy doing the jobs.
Mhm.
So yeah. Mhm.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
okay. Um, what do you know about Venezuela?
Um, a little, not a lot, which is very upsetting. I would like to be more educated about it, especially given that some of my dad's employees are asylum seekers from Venezuela. So yeah.
Because I think in all of South America, and I'm not the expert, but I think out of all the people coming up from the South, wherever, the people coming from Venezuela, I think, have in that country gone through more incredible crap than anybody. It's just,
Yeah.
and it's just shameful because Venezuela was a reasonably successful country, And it only took very few people to destroy it. Something we need to always be mindful of, because it can happen anywhere. It can happen here. It hasn't yet, doesn't mean it can't.
Yes, I agree with that. I think that uh, yeah, she my mom, she said that I should probably talk about the violence, about the cartels.
Okay.
So obviously Venezuela, they've got their civil issue. I think they recently had an election and the guy was reelected.
Or basically
Yeah.
election, yeah.
Yeah, that was insane. I remember we were somewhere on vacation in South America when it happened, and my dad was like, "Oh my God."
Mhm.
So, yeah. And then another thing that comes to mind is Haiti.
Yeah, I should have said it's Russia.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
Venezuela.
yeah, I was like, yeah, I mean, Venezuela is pretty bad, but Haiti is insane.
Yeah.
Mm, I was actually going to go on a mission trip that was, what was it like? How far was it from the border for the mission trip? Like 5 miles?
I don't think it was that close, but it was somewhere like within 50 miles.
Yeah, I
Of
was
50 miles of what?
the border of Haiti.
Oh, okay.
I was going to go on a mission trip. I was seriously considering it to the Dominican
Mhm.
with my school. And it was so close to Haiti that my parents were like, hey, my mom, she was like, hey, let's maybe not. That's not a good idea.
It's not much I won't do, but I don't think I want to go to Haiti. No how.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, the guy that started the coffee bean business in Haiti, he's gone to Haiti multiple times and he loves it there. And all I could think was, oh my gosh, like how much has he seen
Yeah.
and experienced? So, um, yeah, Venezuela and Haiti in my mind are like extremely dangerous, extremely, and it's to a point where, okay, yeah, I don't want to go there, I don't want to be there, but then it makes you think about the people that live there
Yeah.
and can't leave. And it's okay. She's saying she wants to really talk about the cartels. So I'll talk about the cartels.
Okay. They seem
Um,
to make a big difference in South America. Yeah.
they make a huge difference, yeah. My dad was from southern Mexico. He's from Chiapas. So Chiapas is a southernmost state in Mexico. It's literally on the border with Guatemala. My dad was from Chicomocello. Like he, it's like a drive, and you're in Guatemala. So the cartels weren't really in his area when he was growing up. The cartels were primarily in the north. That's kind of the rule of thumb that he's always gone by. The cartels are always in the north. They don't come down to the south. It's too far for them to expand. And that was up until recently.
Again, I just want to make sure I'm aware. They exist in other countries besides Mexico, don't they?
Yes.
Okay. But just in Mexico, they weren't in the South.
Yeah,
Okay.
that was kind of like the rule of thumb for at least
Okay.
Mexico, that they don't go to the southern half of Mexico. That's just, they haven't expanded that far yet. We don't have to worry about it.
Okay.
Um, and I very recently, they have expanded. They slowly have been inching more south. And it has gotten to a point where this last August, my dad's city, his town, it wasn't even a city, his town was taken over and a lot of his family was killed in a shootout. Um, oh, yeah, they were kidnapped and tortured. And then when ransom wasn't paid and things weren't done, they sent cartels and people were brutally murdered. Um, yeah, and now they're in the South and they've taken over his town, the southernmost town in Mexico, most likely, one of, if not the southernmost town. So it really shows that Mexico has been eaten alive by the cartels. They definitely have before, but this is insane, honestly.
Yeah. And I immediately think, okay, and then what does anybody do about it? Because they basically, the cartels are effectively the government, as near as I can tell. There's nobody looking down on them. They're looking down on everybody. What do you do?
Yeah. I will say there is a new president. She was elected, I believe, early this year. She was the first female president in Mexico. I believe she's Jewish. I mean, this is like astronomical for Mexico, I admit, for especially being a very Catholic, um, divided. I wouldn't even say divided, but the idea that women simply are not capable, and not meant for that type of role, for them to elect a woman president is insane, especially her being Jewish in a predominantly Catholic country. And the hope is that she will be able to corral and take care of a lot of things.
Well, I hope, but what if cartel decides she's too much trouble and just kills her?
That's a large, and my dad was talking about that. I forget what he said or how he said it, that um, they don't really like to go anywhere, the presidents, and if they do, it's like it's insane, like the amount of security. Um, they have a bullet train being built currently, and the president went out to see it, and it was this really big deal, and the idea was protect them from the cartels.
Yeah.
So yeah, like, yeah.
Do you mind? I just wanted to mention that your dad's cousin was terribly tortured and killed last week, and he had left and went 200 miles away, and they came and found him. That literally they take over the whole city, and if you do not prove your fealty to them, if you're not with them, you're either with them or you're not. And if you're not, they would slaughter you. And that has been what's going on. And that really, people, their whole villages are not even livable anymore. And even if they go somewhere else, they're found. And I believe that right now and lately is truly been what's driving along the immigration.
Yeah, I can see that.
That is what I just wanted to mention, that really is happening. That's not made up, and we see it. We don't read about it in the papers. Juliana sees it and hears about it. Her dad doesn't talk about it a lot because it's so painful.
I can see that.
His dad was kind of high up in the little village, and they kidnapped him, and his mom, and he literally was thousands of miles away going, they're going to be shot at any moment. What do I do? He tried to get them out, and his mom actually went back because she has nowhere else to go. She's lived there all her life. And he was very frustrated that she was putting herself in danger, but her home was there. But a lot of people either leave or stay. That's just what I wanted to say.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was thinking, as we've talked about this, El Salvador, apparently the president there, or whatever his official title is just brutally taking on the cartels and apparently winning, but he's violating everybody's rights to do it. Is it worth it? Apparently, yes.
I think yes, because the cartels have established themselves as such a large presence in Latin American governments that you have no other option but to face them head on.
And more than just head on, but overpower them and kill them. That's pretty much all the options there are.
So. I mean, imprisoning them. I know, what was his name? El Chapo and his sons, and then they broke free. We were in Cancun at the time. I think when he broke free, that was a nightmare as well. How we're in Latin America when this stuff happens, I have no idea. But yeah, it just, And it's horrible to say because as a human, you should not be killing other human beings. But when it gets that bad, like, what do you do in that situation? Yeah.
Well, then that brings an obvious question to my mind: is various, I'll say cartel members, but at least gang members of some sort, who are illegal immigrants, who are committing murders and violent crimes right here in the United States. To what extent are you aware of them? What can you tell anybody that they don't already know? Or is it that is some people say it's not that big of a problem, some say it's a huge problem. What do you say? Well, we know we have immigration problems in this country. We had it one way under President Biden, and we have it some other way developing under President Trump. What is being done, what should be done, and very specifically, what about the criminals coming across the border and setting themselves up in business in the United States? We'll discuss that some more in the upcoming episode 3 of Conversations with Real People with Juliana.